Blog Talk Radio.
The land of swimming pools and movie stars. And just two laughs and a hard ride from the Hollywood sun.
Come here, Daddy. Oh, you look so good.
I meant the other direction. Harrison's Hangout. Harrison on the highway.
And it is the top of the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome to our Hangout tonight. As you know, this is the companion to our live broadcasts on KPFK 90.7 in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California and the Sierra Nevadas, including also our new launch March the 15th on the Progressive Radio Network, which is based in New York City. So we're very much looking forward to that. Our first guest is slated to be none other than Jane Fonda. We're going to have a lot of fun, and tonight we're going to enjoy the fun, frolic, mayhem, and merriment that is gay marriage, which does not necessarily mean long-term love affair. It means something similar and akin to what heterosexuals have known in their joy of the last 2,000 years of this kind of business. All humans ultimately act the same way, and I think that's what we're going to discover tonight. It's my pleasure to bring on Michael Kelly. Michael is an attorney representing Robin Tyler and Diane Olson. They've been together some 18 years. They were, I think, really the first couple to get married in California when, for that flash of time, it was legal to do so. And now, after a couple of years, it looks like it's mirroring many other mainstream humans' marriages and dissipating, hopefully amicably, but we're going to learn more. And Michael Kelly, welcome to our Hangout.
Thank you very much.
You are the second attorney we've ever had on, and I will watch my grammar and make sure that I'm accurate.
Don't worry.
So let's talk for a little bit. People aren't sure whether people can get married in California anymore. There was just, brought back into the limelight. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled something. Does it mean this? Does it mean people are still married? Where are we at right now before we get to your clients?
There was a brief second in time back in 1980. I don't know, several months before they stopped it. But people actually got married, and we have done marriages between male-male with custody, female with custody, and in the Olson divorce, we don't have any children, which is great, and the Ninth Circuit's decision is stayed. So as of right now and continuing, there is no gay marriage or same-sex marriage in California.
Unless you are already married during that window when it was legal to become married, you are still considered legally married.
That's right. You certainly are. With all of the rights with the Internal Revenue Service Code, probate code, and absolutely the family law code handles all of the goings-on between two people who are legally married, same sex or not.
Let's talk now about your two clients. Famous, Robin Tyler has been an activist in the gay community here in West Hollywood for probably 20 years. Her wife, Diane Olson, they're getting divorced, and you are representing that. And tell us what's going on here. The very first couple, George Takei was involved in that first bit of lineup. A lot of people got married right then. These two women were among the first. They're now getting divorced after a couple of years. Does this mimic other divorces you've seen, or is there something exceptional and peculiar about a gay divorce, given there's not a long history of this stuff?
Well, I'll give two or three things. Miss Olson was together with her spouse for 18 years, and then they got married, obviously, in that brief second in time in 1980. They were also the plaintiffs who were involved in the lawsuit that gay marriage for a short period of time. And my experience in general, which is 42 years long, I've been practice limited for 42 years to divorce, is that humans, whether they are either gay or lesbian or heterosexual, have all of the same experience, emotions, and everything else that either makes a marriage work or makes it not work.
In your experience of 42 years, and I say this for the benefit of people who are watching and listening right now, who for some perhaps religious reason or pure lack of education may not kind of understand the biology behind this and think it's just some kind of odd choice. In your 42 years of experience as an attorney dealing in Los Angeles, the largest radio market in the country, the second largest marketplace in the United States, so you've seen, of the 12 million people, you've had access to a lot of real stuff that goes on here.
It's also the largest divorce market in the country. It also
Really?
Really, really. Larger than New York City.
Wow. What do you attribute that to?
Well, if you look at divorce or why people do it, all of the various ways that people join with each other. First off, there's couples living with each other for 15, 20 years, having children, getting assets. Then in addition to that, there's a registered partnership, a domestic partnership. And that is an attempt to give people some of the rights that people who can't get married have. Then there was the brief second in time where there was real marriages between same-sex people, and then there is the regular marriage between man and women. And when I was asked about this before, I said, look, it depends on what disposition you bring to the marriage. It depends on what actually your effort is to make it work. It depends on your view about you vis-a-vis what you'll contribute emotionally, physically, and financially to the marriage. And when those get out of kilter in any which way, when finances get out of kilter or the emotional disposition gets out of kilter, then living with someone in that condition is one of the most unpleasant, stressful relationships that you can possibly have. And then if you add children to that, just multiply it by 3.
Yeah, it's hard enough with a 7-pound Chihuahua, but that is a unique condition on my part. Harrison, with you, we are talking to Michael Kelly, Esquire. He's the attorney representing the 2 women, the first 2 women to be married in the state of California during the entire Prop 8 imbroglio. And as often is the case, sort of in a denouement situation, the 18-year partnership that preceded the lack of legal capability to get married, once you actually, fell the gazelle that you've been hunting and chasing, the meat might taste differently later on. I think that's one of the things that we see in the general human population. Because this is a public divorce, not a private one happening on some mountain in Idaho somewhere, there must be special parts of this that you're having to cope with that almost exacerbate the situation that these 2 women are going through.
Yes, I am representing Diane Olson. I don't represent her spouse. So because you can only represent one person in a divorce. And what I have worked on quite hard is to be accommodating so you can have honor in how they leave each other and how they split, because certainly you would want to have the first same-sex marriage not pull down the concept by having a firefight. And there's no guarantee that there is, because Mrs. Olson's wife or spouse did a prenuptial agreement which left her nothing, absolutely zero after 18 years, except a little bit, maybe not many thousands of dollars. And so what I'm trying to do is get the people to make sure that they both leave this with something to do with the rest of their life. And certainly Miss Olson's spouse has $1 million house and many other things. And Miss Olson's position is they had a business. And the business was putting together travel logs where they go to Egypt with people, where they go to Egypt or Africa or Europe. And after all of that work for 18 years, she doesn't have a piece of the business. And that at least is the position of her spouse. Whether that'll prevail or not, we shall see.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. In states like Florida, you sort of automatically get 50% access and other things. If you're the woman, but you're both the women in California, that's kind of different too. There's not a long history of the husband is traditionally the provider and therefore must pave some highway of future possibility for a wife who has given up her prime years, may not have any skills to get a job or do anything. So we must provide for her for at least some time on. But when they're both the women, you're kind of having to invent this in a way as you go forward, I would think.
Maybe not. I mean, I would tell you why. And that is that this marriage, since it's a marriage, is subject to each and every bit of California family code. And the California family code, and I'm also a Florida lawyer, by the way, so I'm aware of that. The family code looks at the assets and the income and the resources of two people, not, two women, just two people. And based on that, they try and make a decision that lets everybody get to live. And 18 years is a long time to tie yourself up with somebody. That also creates what's called Marvin rights. Lee Marvin, you remember that famous case?
Ah, yes.
Well, that creates that too.
One of my favorite World War II actors.
Me too. I'm a Marine. And he was a Marine. By God, he was a Marine. And by the way, in that case, Marvin versus Marvin, Michelle Triola didn't get a penny. And I represented Mrs. Marvin for a while, the real Mrs. Marvin. And she didn't get a penny. Michelle Triola didn't get 1 cent. Didn't get attorney's fees, didn't get rehabilitation. The judge tried to give her that, and then that was reversed. And that's what happened.
We're talking to Michael Kelly. He's an attorney, been practicing for 43 years, has had a panoply of pop stars and Pantheon-level players as his clients. Right now, he's representing one of the two first women to be married in the state of California, the two first women. One of them, obviously, is his client, and they had a prenuptial agreement in which one of them takes really the entire business they built over the course of almost 2 decades and says, it's all mine, good luck, have a nice day. That's the prenuptial agreement. How does one understand this notion of being deeply in love, wanting to spend the rest of their natural life with somebody, making vows that support that, but on paper, in a legal sense, saying, on the other hand, forget it? How does that reconcile for anybody?
Can I tell you the truth? It doesn't. And I would tell you that I've been married to my wife for 32 years. And the last thing, although I certainly knew about them, the last thing I thought about was a prenuptial agreement, because my attitude about marriage is all in. It's all in. Do the best you can do. It's all in. And that's different than a lot of people. For example, you get men who are far advanced in age marrying a 22-year-old person. Well, they obviously didn't have anything to do with the accumulation of wealth or anything like that. And other than that, when you have a situation where you certainly have something cold in it. Now, when I have the thing that I've done for many years, we were on the Playboy channel yesterday. And my wife is a Playmate and the president of the Playmates, and I have done more Playmate divorces than anybody else anywhere in town by a lot. So I had it good.
That's bragging rights.
You're damn right. You're damn right. And so when I looked at it, I used the word all in. In other words, when you put everything you got into the marriage, I'm talking about emotionally and everything else, then that will tend to make a good relationship. And my wife and I have never been separated, never filed an action, never did anything. In other words, we're still with each other and still in love. And we have a regular, everyday relationship from everybody else. You have differences of opinion. You have, so I don't want to do this versus I don't want to do that. And it doesn't make a difference when you're all in, because what you have given your spouse, whether it be same sex or heterosexual, is that you have said, I'm committed. I'm all in. So you have the security of knowing, as long as we're together with, until you say we want to get a divorce, you're all in. And I believe that strengthens a relationship beyond everything else, other than if somebody says, we're all in and what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine.
Yeah, it's like we with a capital W on one side and lowercase on the other. And I think just from the get-go, that is suspicious thinking. And I would assume, again, same-sex marriage, kind of a new thing. Heterosexual marriage, not such a new thing. But the same kind of template applies, is
Yes.
that if you're doing a prenup, you should pay attention to that. Really pay attention to it, because that's what's really real at the end of the day.
Oh, yes, it's more than that. Here's what's not real: the money. It's the money, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. You get it? In other words, if you say, you're with me and I'm going to take care of you as long as you do what I tell you to do. And when you don't, I'm going to pull the car, pull the apartment, walk away. And you're now, in some instances, 15, 25 years into a relationship, and you have nothing. If you look at those prenuptial agreements, you have nothing.
We're going to open up the phones right now. If you'd like to talk to our guest, Michael Kelly, he's the attorney representing Susan Olson. Did I say Susan? Diane Olson. I'm thinking of the journalist Susan Olson, whom we had on. That's another expedition from hell, that one for sure. Diane Olson, who is one of two of the first women to be married following Proposition 8 here in California. And her partner created a prenuptial agreement, Robin Tyler, basically saying what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine, but I love you. And now here's this woman, after almost 2 decades, having to look into the future with not much financial pavement standing under her, though her investment of time, affection, and life was fully invested. Our number is 310-737-TALK. Those are your Harrison hotlines, 310-737-TALK. And in this wonderful open forum here, you can speak freely without having any FCC fingers wagging at you. And Michael, what is the prognosis? And I know you can't deliver everything that you're planning here, but I'm guessing that because you're out in public talking about this, there's some real promise for the person who's invested almost 20 years into this relationship to find some kind of recompense for all of this.
Yes, you have a right to, in this case, there is a right to bring a Marvin suit. There's a right to ask for attorney's fees, and there's a right to talk about duress, because if somebody's got all the money and they say, if you want to marry me, you sign this prenuptial agreement, that's duress. And I have no idea how it'll turn out, but I do know, look, we're a 30-person divorce firm. We're one of the biggest in California. And so it's not a walk in the park to be on the other side of us. But if you keep talking about honesty and honor and what is the right thing to do versus what's the legal thing to do, sometimes those are so far apart, you think you were in Kansas and Oz. You get it? There's big difference between what's the right thing to do and what you can get away with legally.
We're talking to Michael Kelly, and Michael, given that this is possibly going to alter people's perception about what gay marriage is. Before, it was a theoretical proposition. It became a reality. Now it's dropped out of the capability to go exercise it again. It's kind of on hold, on hot standby until it gets examined, re-examined, and re-examined.
It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yes, that's right.
It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court.
They may or may not decide that they want to get involved. It's not like George Bush running for president, where they get involved, because the alternative is democracy, for Christ's sake, and we can't have a whole lot of that. Sorry about my cynicism, but I think it's
okay. Great.
Do you imagine that this could stain the notion of gay marriage and take it from the fantasy that we all would like it to appear into the reality that it's a risky business?
I don't, because see, no matter how you call it, it's still people and human beings that are marrying one another. And it's the people, not whether they're male and male and woman, it's the people making the commitment and having either the moral courage or the intensity or the integrity to do their best to do it. Out here in California, there's still a 62% divorce rate, and that's in the heterosexual market. So if you got that in the heterosexual market, you sure as blazes are not going to do any worse than that in the same-sex marriage. I don't think.
Let me ask your opinion. 43 years practicing law, you've seen every kind of human, from the puck fist to the magical person, from the highest level of integrity to the lowest level of gutter snipery. So you've seen it all.
I have.
Do you think, again, for the benefit of the religious person or the underinformed person, is this same-sex thing some weird bad choice made on a Thursday, or do you think there's this biological thing where these people actually do like each other and actually are attracted to each other? They're not just deciding to do it because it's naughty and it's going to upset their priest. Like, what's your experience after almost half a century?
My experience is that if I keep saying that it's people doing it, and if you take a look at the human emotional responses available to whoever your partner is, I would challenge anybody to say, well, it's a different emotional response if it's men to men or woman to woman or marriage, because people, the arguments in the what shall I say, in the briefs are saying that you can't say that you could discriminate against people who are in love. If you're in love and you're really in love, and there's a huge hormonal, biological point in time of between 6 months and 18 months, well, that's when you start to get into it, and everything that your lover says is funny and humorous and tender. And then after that, you might say, for some people, reality sets in, you know.
Yeah, it gets tender, but in other areas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but when you see it, if you look at it, there aren't any studies that I know of, and I happen to be intellectually interested in the marriage process, that somebody has ever done a study and said, well, the emotions that same-sex marriages or couples feel are any different than the emotions that a man and a woman feel. Because look, the argument that you see out here is not that the emotions are different. They are saying that God depends and God says that marriage must be between man and woman. Well, that's what God said, and that's fine. But that's not the argument that is existent in this particular kind of a lawsuit or relationship. Everybody feels the same, and when everybody feels the same, what they want to do is at least feel, I'm going to be with my partner forever. And that part of it is over with for me.
We're talking to Michael Kelly. He is the attorney representing Diane Olson. Diane Olson, one of the first woman to get married in California. The first, yes.
First.
Following Prop 8 is now going through divorce 2 years later. We're actually examining much more deeply rather than just sort of the cosmetic arm wrestling that goes on, but the deeper side of the humanity of it so that we can really kind of understand the process being that which is very interesting to Mr. Kelly. And I agree the same way. I'm much more interested in the why than the what, because the what's everywhere. But unless we ever examine the why, we're going to get more of the what and fall victim to it constantly. And as we look at this, I just want to take a slight 3-degree turn because we have an attorney on here. And I want to just talk about Rush Limbaugh for just a second, having excoriated this law student at Georgetown University, calling her on the air a slut, and then saying, but if she is going to have sex, he wants it videotaped so that he can watch it. And parenthetically speaking, quite clearly, he would want to jerk off to it. I can't imagine wanting to watch some girl have sex online without release. At least this is my speculation here. But shouldn't she sue the shit out of him for defamation of character? I mean, this is just, he pilloried her unbelievably. And if this were a decade ago, her father and uncle and brother would have shown up and beaten the shit out of Rush Limbaugh for that.
Yes. So here's what happened. This is a situation where the Democratic Party has taken this Mrs. Snook or Shook and are bringing her out for the purposes of utilizing, I guess she's a 23-year-old person who makes a statement about contraception because they're trying to set it up to be an issue in the next presidential election. And once you bring yourself out and make a public statement or are in the press, you then are the more of fair game than you have any idea. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You are not going to get a defamation or any other kind of lawsuit because you were the person in the first place that came out and made those statements. and I don't really doesn't make any difference to me what statement she makes. But if you're asking me about the legal end of it, she wouldn't stand a chance.
And I am, and thank you for that clarity, because on the left or Democratic or progressive, whatever you want to call it, side of the media that intends to be the counterpoint to Rush Limbaugh
Yes.
and Hannity and all the rest, they're all pushing, advocating, screaming, and yelling that she sue for defamation and all the rest of it. And I didn't think she could either, because when you do publicly on your own volition show up and become a public figure and advocate for something, you much like a soundbite, become public territory, and nobody has to pay rights on it if it's an actuality. And I know we're speaking kind of a weird FCC thing here,
but
basically,
exactly right.
She's volunteered for this, and therefore you can rightly, wrongly, correctly, incorrectly call her a slut, and it's too bad because she showed up for this.
That's right, and that's how it is. The laws in England are somewhat more strict, but in here, this is a land of the free and free press, and everybody's defending free press, and that's just exactly what she put herself into.
Well, I thank you for that clarity, because it really is going to bugger the arguments coming from the side of the Democratic Party, which is a broadcasting wing that is unabashedly supporting Mr. Obama and other things, and advocating that this lawsuit be filed. But I didn't think it was actually possible. And so it's basically the same amount of noise on the left as we have noise on the right. And all of it is just sort of jibber jabber. None of it is based in any actual actionable reality.
True, and there's more to it than that. And let's assume for a minute that, first off, you sued Rush Limbaugh, and let's assume that it gets dismissed. He can then sue the lawyer and the lady for malicious prosecution. And if you take a look at the financial wherewithal, I understand that Rush Limbaugh has some 22 million listeners a day. And so, one of the things you have to be very careful of is you take a stand, and then because the amount of people that's on the other side of it, you do yourself or your cause more damage than you ever do by advocating the cause, because that's an awful lot of people. And the other part is that he is the number one, I believe, but I'm not sure, he's like the number one talk show host in the country. And his financial resources, or the financial resources of whatever the company is he works for, are enormous. And they would come, and if whatever she does, they will be coming down like unbelievably, ferocious at it.
I would think that this is, he is no rube. He is not a neophyte. He's not a dilettante. He has very smart decisions. When I say smart, I mean in a business sense. It doesn't mean, they're of intelligent design, of intelligent origin for sure. Whether we agree with his taste or not, his decency or not, his morality or not, and I underscore not there, my opinion, of course. But he's going to get a ton of mileage out of this, because already he's been on MSNBC, CNN repeatedly, just video of his podcast, of his radio show, not Rush even needing to physically appear anywhere. But
that's true.
I imagine the hits to his website have been astronomical in the last 48 hours. If he pushes a new book next week, it's going to go gangbusters. And all of this is very calculated, and yet the American population, I think, is really quite clueless to how all of this stuff works, and that it's not legally defensible or indefensible. It's a nothing.
Yes, there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm thinking he got about $10 million worth of free advertising. People who never heard of him before or saw him before have now seen him.
I'm going to ask you another sort of disjointed question, and we will finish with the reason you're on here. But I really appreciate the way you think, and I appreciate your candid responses here and the enlightenment, because at the end of the day, if we can all walk away feeling a little bit more balanced and informed, then you and I have done a good service here. Andrew Breitbart, who just passed, who had this amazing platform that he had developed, formerly the editor of the Drudge Report, and then Arianna Huffington pulled him into the Huffington Post, and he helped build that thing. But I think this guy redefined what journalism is today, meaning that journalism is not journalism. It's anybody named Timmy who's got a keyboard and can type is a journalist. And I say that because if you watch CNN, everyone's a journalist. If you watch anything, everyone's a journalist. They get it under their graphic. Fuck the AP handbook. Screw going to school. You don't even need to be able to read, but you need to be able to type. And Breitbart took us with the Drudge Report and other things to basically gossip is now journalism. You don't need to have it sourced. You don't need any secondary. I just want to get kind of your idea at seeing a change in what used to have some kind of integrity to anybody with a blog, at least according to the official people, CNN, etc., is now a journalist. Blogger equals journalist. As a guy who went to law school years ago, you never could have gotten away with that, could you?
No. And the other thing that happens is this. Bloggers don't guarantee that you have a brain. And because you have a blog or let's say a show on the internet or anything like that, in no way guarantees that you have the kind of insight that is helpful to illuminating or elucidating an issue. And so what you have is people talking about things that really don't move the country and things that are a whole lot more gossip and garbage than it ever was the kind of insight or the kind of at least two-sided view of whatever issue you're going to talk about. So you can have, like Mr. Breitbart obviously had a conservative bent, for sure. We wouldn't argue that. So therefore, when he's complaining about the left,
media,
he's doing the same thing on the right.
Yeah.
And he has a right to do it, but all of that stuff doesn't mean because somebody gives a blogger a secret, it doesn't mean that the secret is really news or that it should be elevated to the I want to use the word elevated to a fact level, that this is a fact. It has nothing to do with it. They have no kind of, if you think any of these people have any kind of checking and fact checking or caring about what they're going to do with somebody else's reputation because they put it out there, that's not true. They don't think about that. This is my opinion, but they don't think about that. They just, here I am on TV.
Which once upon a time was meaningful. Back when you had fewer slices of pie, getting on TV was really quite something. Now you
channels, remember?
Right.
ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's it.
Yeah. Now if you're Paris Hilton and you've dyed your pudendum a new shade of red, you get a reality show. Or if you're Sarah Palin and know how to, rub a moose's belly button the right way, you get a reality show. We're talking to Michael Kelly, and as we wrap this up, and thank you, let me give you your website as well. It's EFLI.com.
It is CFLI, Charlie Friendly Lima India, California Family Law Institute.
Thank you. CFLI.com. C as in Charlie.
You.
I probably ought to get a monocle or something. I misread that hideously.
The last guy that had a monocle at work, you know who it was? It was Winston Churchill.
That's right. That's right. And let's finish with another moment of elucidation here. We were talking about the Marvin principle and all of this. Yep. There are going to be people under the age of 30 probably who might have seen a Lee Marvin movie, might have heard his name, but don't understand what went on in the background where there is entire law formulated around a guy and his live-in girlfriends.
Sure. You want me to tell you? Could I share that with you? Here's what happened. Michelle Triola said she was a singer and gave up her career to be a consort for Mr. Marvin. And they lived together, they were together, but he never divorced his wife. So that's what happened. So then when the bloom went off of that rose, just like they always do, then she said, look, I was just like your wife. I was here and I didn't go out with anybody else, which turned out not to be true, by the way. And what I want is I want the same rights as your wife for spending, 10, 12, 14 years with you. And the court said, no, thanks, you're not going to do it. And then Lee Marvin won, and then Michelle Triola appealed, and the judge tried to throw her a crumb called rehabilitation, like 125 grand, which was pennies for Mr. Marvin. And the appellate court says, no thanks, this is not a marriage. Rehabilitation doesn't go for living with somebody. That's it.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Michael Kelly, for really explaining all of this stuff, and also for the benefit of people who don't understand what a gay marriage is and think it's special, that it's hideously unspecial, just as painful, just as tricky, just as wacky as anything that's ever been invented since the dawn of humankind.
I agree.
Right? And when the lights are out, it's all the same.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much. Your website again, C as in Charlie, F as in Frank, L as in Lima, I as in India. You can see the website located up there. Michael Kelly, I hope you'll join us again down the road. You're really great fun to have on. You're bright. You're awesomely helpful. And, we vote yes for that. And we vote yes for your supermodel Playboy Bunny wife.
That was February '68, and she's there.
Now, that's the real deal. That's the white gloves Playboy Bunny.
Oh, yeah, just centerfold. I mean, that's really what's true, centerfold. So anyway, I thank you very much, and you're a bright interview. You can call me anytime for any question in this area of life, and I'll be glad to answer it for you.
All right, my friend, you are now officially part of our Brain Trust and a Harrison Hellraiser.
Thank you. I'm also a Marine Hellraiser.
I like it. I like it. Thank you. Thank you, Billy Foster, who handles our entire technical operation remotely from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, where he's a stone's throw from the fabulous and gorgeous Jan Brewer. And I could say that she's a public figure, and it's tough luck, right?
Thanks a lot, brother. Have a good night.
All right, my friend. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.